Hello, and welcome to the Faith, Health, and Home podcast. Joining me today is Kelvin Coleman, Executive Director of the National Cybersecurity Alliance, with tips and resources to keep you and your family safe and secure online wherever you are. Stay tuned. Faith, Health, and Home is coming up next. Welcome to the Faith, Health, and Home digital podcast. I am your host, Makiba Giles. Here we share information and resources for physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being to help families live an inspired lifestyle and encourage healthy living. Thank you for joining us. Well, October is National Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and with the school year now in full swing, it is a perfect time to review and improve the ways that our families stay safe at school and at home. Joining me now with tips to keep you and your family safe online is Kelvin Coleman, Executive Director of the National Cybersecurity Alliance. Thank you for joining me today.
Makiba, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Now, first, we know that there are many challenges that exist for keeping kids and teens safe online today. Tell us, what are some of the biggest challenges that you've seen so far from your end, and is there any pending legislation to help to improve the cyber safety for kids while at home and while at school?
Well, I certainly can talk about some of the challenges we've seen to helping to keep people safe, right? And the one that comes to mind right away is just the availability of technology to young people, right? And by that I mean, you kind of get desensitized to the fact that you have to secure these devices. We are in a state of continuous connectivity, right? There's no more going offline and online. We're just constantly connected. And with that, being constantly connected, it can kind of lull you into a false sense of security that, everything is okay and always will be. When no, we really have to promote educational awareness and training in how to stay safe while connected. And this month, Makiba, is just a great month to remind folks of that. This is our 16th year of celebrating National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. This year we're emphasizing personal accountability and stressing the importance of taking proactive steps to enhance cybersecurity at home and in the workplace. And our driving theme for the month is Own It, Secure It, Protect It. And there are, buckets and, sub-levels under each of those three topics to help people stay safe while online. Not really prepared to talk about any sort of pending legislation, but I can tell you this: Congress is very active in this area. I was just on Capitol Hill on Friday, where we co-hosted a National Cybersecurity Awareness Month launch with the Cybersecurity Caucus on Capitol Hill, led by Congressman Langevin. And it was a great participation up there, a great involvement and engagement. And so I do know Congress is absolutely active in this area and trying to help protect Americans.
That's good to know, and thank you for sharing that. Now, you mentioned personal accountability a few moments ago. We've definitely seen many instances where high-profile celebrities even have been victims of identity theft and even blackmail, all from information transmitted by them online. So we know if it can happen to celebrities, it can definitely happen to everyone else. So tell us, what guidelines should both adults and kids follow to better protect themselves and their personal information online, especially on social media?
I think you said it best, Steve, when you talked about, these celebrities and they're sharing so much information. They make it, they become easy targets, or more attractive targets, I should say, for bad actors, because information equals, value. Data equals value for these folks, and the more they know about you, the more likely they are to target you. What we try and tell folks, particularly young people, particularly as they use social media, right? This is a part of our Own It category that I talked about earlier of the three categories, right? Own it, secure it, protect it. and own it, we encourage young people to, be very careful with their social media account, right? We remind them that every picture you post, every status you update, every piece of information you share, it lives on the internet and for the world to see. There is no delete button on the internet, right? Once you put it out there, it's out there. And more people are using this platform, right? We know that 3.4 billion people worldwide now use social media websites, right? And this is an increase from around 10% of last year, and we don't see that subsiding. That's only going to go up. You think about here in the United States, on average, Americans have 7 social media accounts. And you think about that for a second. For the average American, now, of course, you may have 3, and someone else may have 10, and, they equal 7 at the end of the day. But that's how many we have. And what we try to tell people is, remember, again, there is no delete button on the internet. Share with care. Be sure that whatever you share, you feel comfortable with people knowing. We encourage people not to share personally identifiable information. Certainly, social security number, account numbers, if they can avoid sharing, full name, address, place of work, place of school. Because, again, these are all pieces of information that bad actors can pick up on. Now, far be it from me to, limit people in what they share, right? This is America and free country, and folks are able to share what they like to share. We just like to make sure folks understand the potential consequences of doing that. And, in light of that, if you do want to share a lot, then we ask you to consider updating your privacy settings. On each site, many sites, many devices, you are able to manipulate your privacy and security settings. In other words, who's going to get this, and what are they going to see, and how are they going to see it? We say, hey, make sure that you have your privacy settings at a level that's comfortable for you, and connect only with people that you trust when you do connect. I think that's a big one for folks. Don't just blindly accept folks as they try and connect with you, because in some cases they have nefarious intent, right? They have not so good intentions in trying to connect with you. And lastly, speak up if you're uncomfortable about something, particularly young people. If a friend posts something about you that makes you uncomfortable or you think is inappropriate, let him or her know. And likewise, stay open-minded if a friend approaches you and says, well, you posted something about me that made me uncomfortable. And this isn't necessarily saying that, I don't like Christina and I think, she was mean to me. Nothing of that nature. I may be saying, hey, I'm meeting her at our favorite donut shop on, 112th and Lenox or whatever, and we meet there every Wednesday. Like, I'm putting stuff out there about my friend that is not, my prerogative or right to do. And so we say, be careful when you're even sharing about other people, including your children.
That's some wonderful social media tips there. And we've also seen also in recent news, Kelvin, where connected home devices that are intended to help our daily lives are actually maybe possibly putting us at risk by secretly recording, sharing private conversations without our knowledge, or even allowing access to our devices from outside of the homes, and much more. Now, we talked about how to keep yourself safe online. Can you tell us, is there anything that people can do to be more proactive at making their connected home devices more secure to prevent those occurrences that we've been seeing lately from happening?
Yeah, what a great question, because now you're getting into the aspect of, what's commonly known as the Internet of Things, right, or IoT. With so many devices connected to the network these days, it's just really becoming difficult to not be connected, right? And so we really encourage folks to make sure that with many of these devices, all of them practically, you can, shake up your password protocol. In other words, create a passphrase and that's unique and something that can't be guessed. You can come up with your own system. I know people who, instead of using an E, will use a 3, right? And you can do things of that nature that you and your family agree upon, so that passphrases are easier to remember. Because, of course, I can absolutely recognize that, we have to remember a number of passphrases these days. Well, you can come up with a system, though, that can make it easier for you and your family to remember the passphrases to your different accounts. So that's one low-hanging fruit way to help protect yourself and to help mitigate against these challenges. Make sure that you have a strong and unique password to these devices. Make sure that you're keeping tabs on your apps that control these various appliances and devices connected to your Internet of Things home or your smart home, right? Many connected appliances, toys, even devices are supported by these mobile applications. So your mobile device could be filled with apps running in the background or using default permissions you never realized you approved, right? For example, you can have some apps that say, hey, we'd like to know where you're located, right? And there are places within your device where you can say, no, I don't want, application X to know where I am at all times of the day. Now, there are certain applications like the weather app, perhaps, and your the guide app, that travel app that's maybe giving you directions. There are certain apps where location is very important, but for many of them, you can disable that and say, hey, I don't want this app following me everywhere I go, because again, another vector for bad actors to use to locate you and even decide that if you're out, then they're going to maybe go to your home or something else of that nature. So we really do encourage people, as they look at their smart homes and Internet of Things, to shake up the password protocol and make sure they're keeping tabs on their apps.
That is great advice there, and this definitely all falls in line with one of your elements that you're emphasizing for Security Month, which is Secure It. Now, some of the things that you just touched upon, and we're going to circle back to those in just a moment. I do have a question actually from one of our teen audience members, and you did answer the first part of the question a few moments ago, but I just want to also ask the second part of that question just to get your expert advice. And this audience member says, as a high school student, our teacher requires us to create multiple accounts through different resources. Now, you did answer the first part of the question, which is how can teens make their passwords more secure for different sites. But the second part of the question that they had was, is there an easy way to remember which site goes with which password?
Yeah, that is really a great question. We have a number of options that we tell people they can consider, right, including password managers. We work with a number of companies that's what they do and how they help people out. Now, of course, password managers are not bulletproof by any means. They're not foolproof, I should say, by any means. But they do offer a way to manage the multiple passwords that we have. Now, the flip side is that you now have a place where all your keys are, so you better make sure that one key that controls that pot of keys is a very, very strong key. And what I mean by that is a very strong password, very strong user identification that can give you access to those other things. So yeah, password managers are certainly something to consider. Again, creating a unique phrase that only you would know about, and varying, making slight changes to that for the different sites, I think is another way to look at it. Now, when I say that, I'm not saying, for one site, password 1234, and then for the next site, password 12345. No. You have to create a passphrase or something that no one would ever sort of associate with you, and you're using that as your key to get into your different accounts. Unfortunately, there's not an easy necessarily answer to this, but there are some very creative options to manage those things, again, including using a password manager.
Good advice there. And speaking of a password manager, especially for young children, they may try to search for a password manager themselves online. Can you give some tips for how to identify not only a legitimately safe password manager, but also the one that would be best for their needs?
Yeah, just like anything else in this area, we like for you to do your homework and make sure that you're talking to people. That's the best way to to find the best product, right? It's just like anything else in life. You don't necessarily go to the car dealership and buy the first car you find. You do your research and you find out, the pluses and minuses of different cars. I know a company that is on our board, LogMeIn, they recently acquired LastPass, and so we know, right, through our process that an extraordinarily reputable company, and there are a few others out there, I think, that will provide that vigorous, trusted protection you need. But my advice there is that to do your research, to go out and again, talk to different people that you trust, going to your local technology shop that you trust. That's the best way, just like most things that we purchase, the best way to do is to talk to someone that you trust and come up with a solution by incorporating that into your process.
Thank you for sharing that information. Now, you also mentioned, touched upon a little earlier about location services for cell phones. Now, as you stated, we know that enabling that location service on the cell phone can be very beneficial in some situations, like an emergency, or even getting the driving directions from Google Maps, like you mentioned. Even helpful to parents who just want to make sure their child arrived home safely after school. But as you mentioned, there's also that danger that comes with it too, of someone that you don't want to know where you are, and also the mistake of maybe even posting on social media, forgetting to turn that location off before you do. So can you just tell us, is there anything that both parents and kids can do to successfully walk that fine line when it comes to location services on their phone to better secure their privacy?
This is going to be a very low-tech answer. Communicate. Speak with one another. Develop a plan that fits your family, because I can right now tell you, this is, what we do for my family. This is what I consider a best practice. When really the best practice is what works for you and your family, as long as you are, of course, utilizing the basic security protocols like strong passwords and making sure folks understand that the location mechanism is only used for family and only used for those things that are necessary for families. To your point, keep sort of tabs on each other, make sure they're doing well and safe. But a very low-tech answer is to communicate and to talk and to develop a family plan on what you feel comfortable with, as you go forward and try and figure out how to really help keep each other safe and secure.
Absolutely. Great answer there. Another thing I noticed is that some families do is just let their kids know to set an alarm, set a reminder on their phone to turn that location off after they've shared their location with their parents. So yes, a very good tip there that you shared. It's all about communication, setting up what works best for you. Now, lastly, Kelvin, as a veteran of high-stakes cybersecurity posts at both the White House and the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, tell us, outside of everything that we've discussed today, what final tips do you have for families to stay safe online, and what resources are available for families to learn more about cyber safety?
Well, thank you, Mickey, for giving me this opportunity to do that, because I'll actually go back to my last answer. I can talk about passwords, and I can talk about, making sure that you keep a clean machine by updating your machine with the latest security software. I think we've all seeing that, update now or later tab, and a lot of times we'll say update later because we may not have time, but we want to encourage people to update now so that you can have the latest patches. So I could talk about passwords and patches, and certainly talk about, your privacy settings. But for families and their children, again, the biggest thing I talk about is that the family is communicating, that they're talking, that they have a family plan. Many families have developed a plan in case, God forbid, there's a fire, right? Where's the fire escape, and where do we go? Where's our meeting point? Unfortunately, in school, kids are having to do active shooter drills, right? What to do in these situations. In some parts of our country, they have tornado drills. In certain parts, they have hurricane drills. In the same, and you talk about that and you educate the kids, and you develop a plan. In the same way, you develop a plan in terms of the use of technology in your home. What's going to be our proactive plan to manage our risk against bad actors? Because the first thing a family in Topeka, Kansas, or Springfield, Illinois, Redding, Texas, or Texaco, New Mexico, which is an actual place, the first thing these families may say is, hey, I'm not that interesting. No one wants to take, my information. And that couldn't be further from the truth. Bad actors are constantly looking for vulnerable targets to, compromise and confiscate their information. And so, the number one thing I advise for families is to make sure they're developing a communication plan, make sure they're developing a plan, period, so that they're all on the same page as it relates to the use of technology.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. And just wanted to give some resources here for more information on cybersecurity awareness and how to get your family safe online and keep them safe online. You can visit the website of staysafeonline.org. You can also visit the website for the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Careers and Studies. They have downloads available there that you can use for tips and information readily available in your home to keep you and your family safe online. Thank you so much for joining me today, Kelvin. It's been a pleasure.
Makita, thank you so very much for this opportunity, and I certainly look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Envision your brand, event, product, or service advertised right here in this space. For more information, please email us at adsalesinfo@faithhealthandhome.com. Thank you for tuning in to the Faith, Health, and Home digital podcast. For transcripts of this episode and others, visit our website at faithhealthandhome.com. You can also subscribe to our podcast and be sure to connect with us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Thank you for tuning in.